The summer is zooming by, and with it, a lot of new makeup releases. And I want to talk to you guys today about what I think are going to be the best drugstore dupes that have come out during this summer. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, then welcome. My name is Christina, and I am talking all about new makeup releases. I have been just collecting a bunch of new makeup, and a lot of them have reminded me of other products that I have already tested, I have tried, I love, and some of them I really don't like that much. But with that being said, I still wanted to offer you guys some products that I think are very, very similar to one another, whether you're looking for a less expensive alternative or you're just wanting to try something else out. Now, quickly before we get into the video, I just wanted to say a really, really big thank you for my last post. I did mention to you guys that last month I really was not posting a lot of content, specifically because I've been going through it, to be quite honest with you. I did a post on my community tab just explaining where I've been, and it's just been really tough. So I decided in the month of July to really take a step back, take a break, and just recollect, reconvene with myself. And it was a much needed break. So thank you guys so much for being so supportive about that. It truly does not go unnoticed. And I thought it would be really fun to just show you guys what I've been playing with and doing and testing behind the scenes. So I tested all of these drugstore products, and I pulled out the products that I believe are the most similar, that are supposed to be or just happen to be very, very similar to these drugstore products. And what I did in this video was that I did one side fully drugstore and then the other side with all of the high-end versions. So we can really see how they all wear, how they compare, maybe the textures, maybe the colors, or maybe both. And I want to show you guys what it looks like freshly applied, and then I will also show you what my makeup looks like at the end of the day with both sides on. Firstly, probably the thing that kicked off the idea for this video, it's going to be these two products. If you're well versed in the beauty community, you will understand why this was such a big deal. Obviously, just looking at it, even if you don't know too much of the background, they look almost identical. So let me give you a little bit of background on this, because I do think it's kind of important to understand really the impact of these products. So as we know, Urban Decay All Nighter has been around for a very, very, very long time, and sometime last year, I believe it was, they had decided to reformulate without their partner Skindinavia. All Nighter was created with the brand named Skindinavia. They did patent their formula, and they allowed Urban Decay to sell it within their All Nighter spray. So there's a lot that has gone on. There's been a lot of videos kind of breaking down everything that went into this, but essentially Urban Decay decided to move forward without Skindinavia's knowledge and remove them from the mix, and it was just a really big falling out. I actually do have this bottle that still says by Skindinavia on the back. This was gifted to me a couple of years back, and I have just kept it ever since. Now fast forward to this month, McoBeauty, who is very well known to have a lot of products that are very closely resembling other super viral, super popular makeup products, has recently released the All Dayer. Obviously this is the All Nighter, and then this is the All Dayer, but the reason why this is not a dupe, and they have made it very clear this is not a dupe, is because Skindinavia has partnered with McoBeauty. So they have essentially taken that same ingredient list and formulation and put it into an McoBeauty product. So this is, for all intents and purposes, this one repackaged. It is the same thing. So I thought that was really interesting. My thoughts on it, McoBeauty, I actually think this is the very first thing I have purchased from McoBeauty. I have nothing against dupes. Obviously, I am doing a video about them. I have nothing against finding alternative products. Maybe something that might work better for you if something else just wasn't really doing it for you. You know what I'm saying? Like, there is a time and a place for a dupe. When it comes to McoBeauty, that almost feels a little bit copycat, or a lot copycat. Like, they don't really produce very much that is an original idea. They really just decide to come out with alternative products that are at a cheaper price point. So that being said, you guys, I don't have experience with McoBeauty formulations, and I don't know how closely they relate to the product that they're taking inspiration from. So maybe you guys can have some conversation in the comments down below kind of talking about that. But I did want to point this one out because this is really interesting to me. So I did spray either one on my face, and I tested out the longevity and how my makeup wore throughout the day, and they honestly lasted the same exact amount of time. Skindinavia's formula does have cooling technology, which makes it stand out from the rest, and you can definitely feel that in both of these formulas, the OG version and then the McoBeauty one. I will say that the spritz does feel different. The McoBeauty one doesn't feel like it's covering as much area, while this one feels like it's definitely a circular spray and it's a heavy spray. This almost feels like a little bit more of a fine mist, and you know, they have their pros and cons. I found that I had to spray more of the McoBeauty one to get full coverage on my face, whereas with the Urban Decay one, I just spritzed maybe 1 or 2 times, and then I felt I had a lot of coverage. With both of them, I do have to reset down with some powder in areas that I want to be a little bit more matte, because this does leave you with a little bit of a hydrated glow. But other than the hydrated glow, this does keep your makeup staying in place all day long. They're very good. So now that they've reformulated this one, if you were a fan, then this is definitely the replacement for you. This is probably the newest one that I found, and it's going to be a sunscreen alternative. So CeraVe came out with an invisible mineral sunscreen, and Tatcha does have this, which is called the Silk Sunscreen. I just have the mini of this because the full size version, you guys, is like $60+, which is definitely out of my budget right now. And this already was like in the 20s, but I have gotten a lot of use out of this. I've been able to form my opinion on it, and truly, this is a great sunscreen. The reason I think that these really stand out is because, first and foremost, these are both mineral sunscreens. If you guys have any experience with mineral sunscreens, you know that typically mineral sunscreens do leave a white cast because what they do is block the UVA, UVB rays from the outside of the skin, whereas with a chemical sunscreen, it absorbs those rays and then it pushes them out. And one of the reasons why people go for mineral sunscreen is that it is a lot better for sensitive skin, because your skin is not absorbing those ingredients. More so, it's creating a barrier on the skin. So for someone like me who is very acne prone, mineral sunscreens are ideal. However, since I do have brown pigment and medium skin tone, sometimes it's hard for me to find a mineral sunscreen that doesn't make my face look either gray or purple because of that white cast in the zinc oxide. So enter these sunscreens. I first tried this one from Tatcha. I was very intrigued when I saw some videos of people applying this, and it looked really beautiful. I tested it in Sephora. I really love a runny sunscreen, so I decided to pick it up. This is a beautiful, super sophisticated sunscreen formulation. I love how runny it is, and when you apply it, it almost feels like a moisturizer versus a mineral sunscreen. Sometimes I find that mineral sunscreens have a little bit of a thickness to it, almost like a dry feeling when you're rubbing it in, whereas this feels like it's actually moisturizing the skin, and it takes no time at all to get this to absorb into the skin. I'm going to show you guys the B-roll of me applying this with absolutely no cuts, so you can see just how quickly this blends into the skin. And while you're blending it in at first, you can definitely see that white cast. It does come off a little bit with a purple tint, but then after a minute of rubbing this in and letting it absorb into the skin, it completely goes away. It leaves you with a really hydrated finish, but I would say within 10 minutes or so, it definitely dries down. You can see it visibly dry down, and it doesn't leave you looking super greasy or super dewy. And another reason why I think that this is an exceptional sunscreen is because I can put makeup on top of it. There are a lot of mineral sunscreens, because of the nature of them, because they are a bit thicker and they sit on top of the skin, they tend to pill when you put makeup on top of it. This does not do that at all. I think that it is such a beautiful formula. I've been trying to figure out if there's another mineral sunscreen that works like this. There are some that are very similar, such as the La Roche-Posay and Thelios Mineral Fluid Sunscreen. That one is really nice, but sometimes it can leave me a little bit greasy, and if I'm not careful, it can pill just a little bit. But so far, with every foundation, skin tint, concealer I've used this with, I have not had any issues with pilling. Now, the alternative that I found was actually introduced to me by my friend here on YouTube, Magdalene Janet. She did a video talking about this, and I was so impressed when I saw this. She does have melasma, so for her, a mineral sunscreen is the most important type of sunscreen to use because that's what helps with that hyperpigmentation. So she has a lot of experience with mineral sunscreen, so I was like, okay, I trust you, let me try it out. When I tried this, you guys, the first time I tried it in my car, and it blended in so quickly. I'm gonna show you the B-roll here of me applying this as well, with no cuts as well, so you can really see just how nice this is. First of all, it does have that pump applicator, which really helps with keeping this nice and clean, especially because this is also gonna be a very runny sunscreen. I love a runny sunscreen, if you guys cannot tell. I think that it's just such a pleasure to apply on the skin. This to me also feels like a lightweight moisturizer. I can pump a lot onto the skin, and no matter what, it still absorbs into the skin. It does give you that same effect when you first apply it, where it looks very hydrated, very dewy, but after, I would say within 10 minutes or so, maybe a little bit longer than the Tatcha one, it does absorb into the skin. And again, I experience no pilling with this, which is such a plus for me, because the pilling can make or break me wanting to use a sunscreen in general. I have used CeraVe or CeraVe sunscreens in the past, specifically the mineral ones that are in a squeezy tube, and while I liked those, I have been off of them for a long time because I've just found better formulas. Those do tend to be like that traditional thicker mineral sunscreen, whereas this one does not feel like that whatsoever. They feel so similar. They wear the same. They go under makeup the exact same way. I think that these are such a joy to apply. I really do think a thinner sunscreen like this is a lot more helpful for those of you that may not like the feeling of sunscreen on your face. It really does feel like a moisturizer. I was fully convinced that I was going to buy the full size of this whenever I finish this up, but now I have this one to go through, and I'm so excited about that. Next are some cushion foundations, and I'm gonna be quite honest with you guys, they are not my favorite cushion foundations, but I've gotten a lot of feedback from you guys that you enjoy both of these. Some of you have already dubbed this a holy grail, which I think is great, and the reason why I thought it was still worthy of being in this video, they are these two cushion foundations, the YSL cushion foundation that recently came out and the L'Oreal Infallible cushion foundation. So for the L'Oreal cushion, I got the shade number 140 Neutral, which I would say is maybe a half step too light for my skin tone, but if I went up any, it would just be too dark. So the way that I kind of remedy this is I put bronzer on. The shade match is almost perfect for my face, but a little bit pale for my neck. So that's why I say I think it can still work. I still am able to make this work. For the YSL cushion, I have the shade MN7, and this one I would say is like a half step deeper. So a little bit light, a little bit deep, but I can make both of them work. I am putting together a cushion foundation video, so I'm gonna talk in length about both of these, but to give you guys the rundown, the L'Oreal cushion foundation, I find that this one is definitely more of a matte foundation, and I do find that that's kind of the pattern with the Infallible coverage complexion products, and they work really well with oily skin. This applies really nicely. It does have that standard puff puff, but I do find that this is a thinner puff. It doesn't have as much squishiness to it as something like a K-Beauty or a J-Beauty cushion foundation would have. So it almost feels like you're just slapping the product on with your bare fingers. So it does take a little bit to actually blend this in. Sometimes I will go in with an additional sponge just to make sure I get rid of any creasing or streakiness that the cushion may have caused. It dries down almost instantaneously. It is one of those foundations where you apply it, you blend it in, and then it becomes this powdery matte finish. And because of that, the first time that I applied this and I did a short on it with a wear test, I didn't actually use any powder on top of it because I felt like the mattified look already looked really, really beautiful. But I found that over time, while wearing this throughout the day, it definitely sunk into my texture and my fine lines, and it really, really emphasized the texture on my skin, specifically on my upper lip and my chin. So I was not a fan of that, but you guys gave me feedback and told me that although this is more of a matte finish, you still use powder to finish it off. So that's what I did. I tested it with powder, and it definitely helps with the texture. For some reason, it kind of creates a powder barrier and keeps everything in place. My oils don't end up moving the product or making it sink into my skin, which is really great. I do find that even though this is already a matte finish, it benefits a lot from powder. Now, the coverage of this one, I would say, is a light medium to a medium buildable coverage. The first layer is definitely a light medium coverage because I can still very much see my hyperpigmentation and sunspots on the top of my cheeks, which is where I see it the most. And then once that first layer dries down, I can go over it with a little bit more product and I'll just pinpoint it in the areas that I need it. And that's when I get medium coverage. But it doesn't go past that very much at all for me, but I don't necessarily need full coverage every day anyways, so I'm okay with that. As far as layering with other products, it layers perfectly with other things, with my blushes, my bronzers, whether it be a liquid, a powder, a cream. It works really well with all of them. It's just that this is a hit or miss product for me in terms of how it looks throughout the day or at the end of the day. And similarly with the YSL Cushion Foundation, the first time I wore it, I felt like it was really emphasizing the texture on my skin. But let's rewind and talk about the way that this applies. I actually feel like this cushion is very similar to the L'Oreal one, but a little bit more cushioniness to it, so I'm able to get the product to kind of blend and spread a little farther. This does stay hydrated a bit longer than the L'Oreal one does when I'm blending it in, but it does tend to dry down just a little bit. I definitely have to set this with powder because it does have slight hydration to it. I do find that this puff is a little bit streaky, so I do go in with a separate sponge at the end just to make sure that everything is blended out evenly. And this, I think, would give me a medium to full coverage. It definitely has a little bit more coverage than the L'Oreal one. However, if I layer the L'Oreal one on top of itself, I can get very similar coverage to the YSL one. Because this is slightly more hydrated, as I'm applying products on top, like my liquids and my creams, it does tend to kind of mesh with them really well. But also because of that, I can lose a little bit of coverage on areas where I want to preserve the coverage. So on top of my cheeks, I really like for foundation to stay put, whereas if this blends in with a cream or a blush, it can slightly pick that up if I'm not careful. Like I said, once I put powder on top of this, it does stay put. However, what I have an issue with, and it's the same thing with the L'Oreal, as the day progresses, it definitely gets very emphasized in my chin and my upper lip. And these two, to me, while they look the same, they perform the same, and they look the same at the end of the day, it's not necessarily a great thing for me because they look like you're wearing product or makeup on top of your skin. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys, but with foundations, I really love them when they kind of blend seamlessly into my skin. It almost looks like second skin and it moves with it, and my oils will produce and it won't emphasize the actual makeup makeup on top, whereas these, as the day progresses, it just looks like I have a heavy layer of makeup on top. And then as I get oily, it kind of looks like I tried to powder down my oils and then the product is like separating. So not a huge fan of that. However, big caveat, everyone's skin is different. Everyone has different preferences, especially when it comes to foundations. So if you love the L'Oreal one, you're probably gonna love the YSL, and vice versa. If you love the YSL but want a cheaper alternative, you're probably gonna have a lot of success with the L'Oreal one. Let's talk about some eyeshadows. So originally, I had this Morphe palette. Morphe has been releasing a ton of new products, and I've been really intrigued by the eyeshadow palettes. Specifically, this 6-pan caught my eye. They're beautiful neutrals. They lean a little bit more warm tone, while this one's a bit more cool. Overall, I would say that this is a bit more warm, which is what I tend to gravitate towards when it comes to my makeup. So originally looking at this, I was like, oh my gosh, this has to be a dupe of the Makeup by Mario Master Mattes palette. This is the original one. I do have the cool neutrals as well. But in my head, I was thinking, okay, these two are going to be complete dupes of each other. Like, they're too similar not to be, right? While the colors can be quite similar, like I can find similar shades to each other, I didn't think that they were the closest to one another. What I find is the closest to this one is going to be the Patrick Ta Major Dimensions 3 palette. This is going to be the all neutral, all matte eyeshadow palette. I have gotten a lot of use out of it because mine has stayed pretty true to the formula, and I really like the neutrals, but I myself was kind of looking to see if I could find a more compact and different brand from the Patrick Ta one. And these, you guys, are very similar. Obviously, the colors are similar. I can find very similar shades to the Patrick Ta eyeshadow palette from the Morphe palette, but the reason why I feel like these are so similar is the formula. I do find that the Patrick Ta formula is super buttery, and it diffuses a lot onto the eyes. Some may say a little too much to where it just becomes like one muddy mess. I don't necessarily find that that's the case for myself, but with the Morphe ones, I do find that these feel more buttery than something like the Makeup by Mario, which is why when I was using it and comparing them, I was kind of like, I wouldn't necessarily call this a dupe, other than the fact that these are all matte and neutral. This felt more buttery, a little bit pillowy, and it really reminded me of the Patrick Ta Major Dimensions palette. I love that it's just 6 pans. It doesn't feel overwhelming for me, and these are all shades that I've already dipped into, and I find that I can use all of them for very different reasons. I can come up with a ton of different eye looks with this. I was nonstop using this eyeshadow palette the week that I got it because, one, I was testing it, but also two, I wanted to. Like, I was like, man, this is such a good palette. Because the formula is so similar, the way that they stay on the eyelids all day, they do not fade, they do not smudge or budge or anything like that. I find that it stays put all day. This is definitely going to be the one that I'm reaching for over probably either of these. Well, I can't say for sure about the Master Mattes because, you know, I still get a lot of use out of this, and it does have some very beautiful nuanced shades in them. But I do find that texture wise, these are a little bit drier and I guess a little chalkier, while this one is a little bit more buttery. If these products are not dupes, I don't know what is. You can clearly see that CoverGirl took a lot, like heavy inspiration from the Makeup by Mario Shaping Serum. Now, you guys are very familiar with this shaping serum in my content because this is in my project pan. I do have my little tally marks right here. I talk about this all the time. I really enjoy using this as a first layer of bronzer just to warm up the skin after using something like a foundation to just flatten out and even the skin tone. This brings the skin back to life. It's very sheer. It's kind of this gel texture. It's not meant to be the one and only bronzer that I use. It's just the first step, and it really helps to blend other bronzers into my skin. Like, it creates a really nice gradient. So for instance, if I'm using a full coverage foundation and I want to use a little bit more of a dramatic contour, this will kind of bridge that gap so it doesn't look so stark when it comes to the contour. And I'll also use this under a regular bronzer. Sometimes when a bronzer is a little bit more pigmented, I find that this again will kind of create a gradient and diffuse it. So I have been pretty much using this exactly the same. So the CoverGirl one, the packaging the same, it has a pump, but not only that, you do have the doe foot inside that you can use to apply this onto the skin. My preferred method with both of them, honestly, is to pump it out and then work it into my brush, really get it in there, and then apply it to the face. For the CoverGirl one, I actually have a 40 medium. I would say that this one is a touch warmer than the Makeup by Mario one in medium, which is what I have. I think that the Makeup by Mario one is more neutral toned, while the CoverGirl is undoubtedly more on the warm tone. It does have a little touch of orange, a little touch of red, but not so much that it looks unsightly on the skin. It still blends really well if you have like a warm undertone or even a neutral undertone like myself. But I could definitely see this pooling orange on anyone that is more olive toned and anyone that has a cool tone. So just be warned about that. Both of them give you such a sheer warm wash on the skin. I really do think it looks so beautiful, no matter if you're going for a full face of makeup, a little heavier on the makeup, or if you're doing a lighter face of makeup and you just want a little something. They both have the same purpose in that sense. They can both do the same thing. Texturally, I do find that the CoverGirl one is slightly more runny, while the Makeup by Mario one does have a little bit more body. It's a little bit more moussey before you really get your brush in there. They thin out really nicely once you pack it onto your brush, but I do also find that the CoverGirl does have a little bit more pigmentation. That could be a pro, that could be a con, just depending on how you like to use this type of product. It doesn't bother me either way. I'll just either build up the Makeup by Mario or shear out the CoverGirl one. They're both usable for me. I was just really impressed by how much the CoverGirl one could be similar to the Makeup by Mario one. We see a lot of liquid bronzers out there, but they do tend to be more pigmented, either a thicker texture, or they just don't have that same sheer kind of whisper of bronze that the Makeup by Mario one does. So I think that CoverGirl did a great job for giving an alternative to the Makeup by Mario one for the drugstore. But I do think that the shades are a little bit harder to work with because from what I've seen, they all pool slightly more warm, which makes sense for a bronzer. But also, I think that there's a line with a bronzer where it can add some warmth to it, but it also needs to work with different undertones. And unfortunately, I think that CoverGirl is lacking a little bit on that. But if what you're looking for is going to be something that's texturally similar and ends up applying similarly to the Makeup by Mario one, and the shades do work for you, I think you might really like this one. I really like this one. So I'm not sure if you guys have seen the Physicians Formula summer collection, but when I saw that these had released, I was super intrigued. I thought they were really beautiful. So I picked up a couple of products and both of them reminded me of products I already own. So first of all, this massive bronzer from Physicians Formula, it is called the Bronze Booster and it's in the shade Summer Sunset. Like I said, this is a summer collection. I don't know if it's permanent. I'm not really sure. It's kind of hard to open. I have to really get my finger in there, you guys. But look at this shade. The first time I put this on, I was in love. I thought it was so beautiful. It's this gradient right here, so you can see a little bit more of a bronzy shade up top where I assume is supposed to be the sun, and then the sun rays as you go up, it turns more into this peachy tone, and you can really customize the look based on what you're going for that day because you do have that option of the gradient. I'll typically swirl mostly into the peachy shade on top and then go down a little bit. Sometimes I'll touch on the more bronzy tone, but overall I'll just do like 1 or 2 swirls and then a little extra of the peach one, and It's so beautiful. It just adds the most beautiful flush and a little bit of like that sunburnt-y look, but like a sunburn with a little bit of a peach blush on top. I think it's so lovely. It really warms up the skin. And the finish of this, you can see very closely that it does have some pearlescent finish to it. It's definitely a little bit shinier, and there are micro glitters in here, but you don't feel it. It's not chunky and it doesn't come off as a glitter. It almost just adds a little bit of sheen to the tops of the cheeks. And the product that I find is going to be the most similar, and the one that I thought right off the bat was going to be the most similar, this one, you guys. You can even see that this is a flower, obviously this is the sun, but don't they look kind of similar? Not only that, the formulas, you guys, are so similar. This is the Bare Minerals bronzer, and I have two. Okay, we're gonna get really nitpicky here. So Kiss of Copper is the one that I initially grabbed from my collection, and I was like, I think this is the same. Kiss of Copper is a bit brighter than what you can get out of the Physicians Formula one. It's a little bit brighter of a peach, while this peach, even the top right there, it comes off slightly more warm bronzy toned. So what I did was I pulled this out, also part of the Bare Minerals bronzer collection. This is Kiss of Spice, and these two mixed together give you this almost identical. Obviously you have to kind of finagle and play around with this to get that perfect same look as the Physicians Formula one, but also the same thing can be argued with this, because you're going to get a different look every time, because I'm sure you're not going to swirl it the same exact way every time. So I found that I can get very similar looks out of these products. I have been a long time fan of this. You guys know the bronzer collection from Bare Minerals really opened my eyes to bronzers, to things that were a little bit warmer, gave you a sun-kissed glow. These definitely have that same pearlescent sheen. You can kind of see it even in the light right here. They almost look a little bit metallic, but then once you diffuse it onto the skin, it just gives you this beautiful blushy pearly finish. But there's enough pigment in here where it doesn't look metallic on the skin. It really does look so warm and natural and healthy, and same exact finish and look and feel as the Physicians Formula. Not to mention, you guys, this is massive. This is 16 grams, while these are 3.8 grams. So hello, huge, ginormous. I'm thoroughly loving this. I think it's such a great deal. They did such a good job. Truly one of the blush products that I have tried very recently that I immediately was like, oh, this is gonna get a lot of use. This one may feel a little bit more like a stretch, but stay with me here, you guys. Another launch from the Physicians Formula Summer Collection. This is the Bronze Booster Sun Tint in the shade Bronze Tint. I think that this, no, there's another shade, but this is the bronzy tone. And I pulled this one out, the Benetint in Dark Cherry. I've heard a lot about this being similar to the Victoria Beckham Sun Drops or Bronze Drops, I think. Bronze tints, I don't remember what they're called, but they're sold out everywhere. I didn't know about them until after they had sold out. I'm really curious to try those, because those, I would say, in terms of color, are very much bronzers, whereas this one can kind of be a bronzer, just depending on your undertones and your skin tone. The reason why I find these are very similar is because they are going to be a darker reddish brown tone, I would call them. And while this is marketed as a bronzer, and I can actually use this almost like a bronzer on my skin tone, I also find that this works so well as kind of a deeper, more rich blush shade on myself. I think that this is so beautiful, and because it is going to be a water tint, both of these are, they sit very closely on the skin. They essentially stain your skin, so it's not like you have makeup sitting on top of the skin. Do you know what I mean? So it just looks more natural, more flushed, more like bitten type of lip look and cheek look. I guess your cheeks won't be bitten, flushed, I should say, for the cheeks. I think that there is definitely a difference here, and maybe it's personal to my skin tone, but they do look similar in my skin tone. They pull very similarly, but I will say that maybe if you are more pale or if you do have a cool tone, the differences in the color of these may be much more apparent on your skin tone. So just keep that in mind. However, I do find that they're similar enough where based on the use, you could probably use them interchangeably. So on the cheeks, they look quite similar because I do tend to sheer this out quite a lot on my cheeks. But if I build it up, then you can start seeing that the Benetint one does pull much more red, while the Physicians Formula is like a reddy brown tone. And I do need to use a lot less of the Benetint because on the cheeks it is more pigmented. These I think look almost identical on my lips. They both have this like bitten dark cherry look. For some reason, the Bronze Booster does pull a lot more red on my skin tone, and maybe that's because I had them side by side. So maybe having the Physicians Formula on my lips pulled out more of the red tones in there. I'm not quite sure, but I have used the Physicians Formula one on its own just as a base for my other lip combos, and it does add just a little bit of deepness and depth on the lips that I really, really enjoy. Now this one, I don't know, like obviously the other ones are very similar, but this is almost like you can tell it was heavily inspired. The Revlon Glimmer Super Balm and the Jones Road Miracle Balm. Obviously we do have a size difference here, but I don't think it's such a big deal just because the way I use these. So let me explain to you guys. I have the Revlon Super Balm in the shade 004, which is rosy bronze. They do have more blushy tones, but I thought this would be a really nice shade to just kind of dust all over, or like not dust because it's a balm, but just very sheerly put all over on the tops of the cheeks for some warm glow on top of blushes and just on top of like my skin in general. And the reason I thought that was because I used the Jones Road in the shade Sunkissed in that same way. So as you can see, definitely a bronzer type of shade, and Jones Road Miracle Balm also comes in blushy tones, not just these bronze tones. I think I also had tawny at some point, but I'd gotten rid of it a long time ago. But these two, color-wise, they're very similar. Now you can see a difference in the shades if you take a chunk of these balms. However, the way that you apply these is going to be very sheer anyways. And I've noticed that when I apply these sheerly the way that I usually would, they give me the same effect. So if you look closely, they do have a bit of like a pearlescent, almost metallic sheen to them, but the textures of them are so similar. The Jones Road Miracle Balm is very popular because it does have this kind of balmy, thicker, almost Vaseline-y texture to it, where if you were to apply it like full force, it would feel really greasy, but that's not the way you're supposed to use them. You're supposed to kind of apply them sheerly onto the skin, and they're supposed to give you nice glossy hydration. And there's a way to wear it to where it's not just gonna slip and slide. I like to apply my full face of makeup, my powder, my finishing powder, and then I'll do a really nice coating of this onto my brush and then just dust it all over my skin, and it'll give me a little bit of a hydrated glow. And I did the same thing with the Revlon one. Now you can feel the textures of both of them, and you can tell right off the bat with the Revlon one, it does feel balmy, but it doesn't feel as thick as the Vaseline-y texture of the Jones Road one. That one definitely feels thicker, while this one almost kind of like melts on contact if you just rub your finger on the top of it. And you can also see that the product is a little bit shinier and a little bit more sheer than the Jones Road one. That one is Jones Road. This one is Revlon, but I think they give you that same type of finish. I do think that using both of them sparingly is key to make it look really nice and healthy and natural on the skin. But I love these because, again, they just add a little extra warmth to the skin. I wouldn't use these alone. I would use these almost like balm toppers. You know what I'm saying? I kind of feel like my Jones Road one is kind of going off because it smells a lot stronger, so it's kind of Play-Doh-y, and the Revlon one doesn't really have that right now. So I don't know what's going on there, but I don't think that's purposeful. I mean, the Jones Road one already does have a little bit of a scent to it, but this smells really strong. So we got a couple more products here. This Morphe Trio, I find is very, very similar to the Patrick Ta blush duos. Now, there are countless Patrick Ta blush duos now. It's just a cream and a powder together. What set it off before was the fact that the powder was used and then the cream on top to give it that hydrated look, but I don't even really use it like that, you guys. I pretty much use the cream and then I'll finish it off with a powder. That's pretty much what I do with this one, except the difference here obviously is that you see you get 3 different shades. You get 2 creams and then you get a powder. You get a matte cream blush, a shimmery cream blush, which could also be like a highlight, and then a matte powder. For me, I think that's way more worth it, especially because you can like mix and match this. I do actually feel like the creams in these are very similar in terms of how thin they feel when you first like swatch them and when you apply them. They do have almost the same amount of pigmentation as well, which I think is really important when you're looking at like alternatives for cream blushes, not just like this unit together, but the individual products in them. I do think that the cream blushes have that thin texture, but a lot of pigmentation, and you can build it up and you can diffuse it. You have the same amount of playtime when you're applying the Morphe cream blush and the Patrick Ta cream blush. The powders also feel very similar. They are very soft, they're very buttery, and I don't see much of a difference with them, you guys. Whenever I use them, I'm like, these are pretty much the same thing. I would say that I don't use this like cream highlight shade very much because I don't know, I just don't reach for it that often. So that's why these two are kind of what I'm comparing to the Patrick Ta duo here. I like that the packaging kind of matches the inside color, whereas with the Patrick Ta ones, I mean, if you have these all lined up, you have to take them all out and read the titles to figure out which is which is very annoying. So this packaging, I think, is well designed and well thought out. Something that everyone has been talking about, the Covergirl powders, the bronzers, the blushes, and the powders. I have finally, after getting this one in PR, I have tried all of them. The bronzer, the baked bronzer, the baked blush, and the baked powder. And the way I'd rank it, I love the bronzer. I really like this powder. And then lastly would be the blushes, only because I feel like there's not like a perfect blush shade. The blushes in general are really, really pigmented, like almost too much for me to be able to work with because they're hard to blend because they just deposit a lot of pigment at one time. Anyways, that's not what this is about. This is the finishing powder in the shade Snickerdoodle. Now, when I got this in PR, I was like, oh, I don't know if that's going to match me. It definitely does pull a lot more pink on the swatch, but it shears out. It's not going to deposit a lot of color. It's mainly just going to kind of diffuse and finish off the way that your makeup looks. Now, I think that this is actually very, very similar to the Hourglass powders, and I have my finishing powders in my palettes, but I have this powder right here, this finishing powder in the Elephant palette in the shade Dim Light, and I think that that is the most similar to Snickerdoodle right there. And not only do they look similar in the pan, but they act very, very similarly on the skin. So Hourglass, you guys already know when it comes to the finishing powders, they do give you like this pearlescent sheen to the skin. It almost looks like there's a spotlight on the skin. Definitely something that you would have to pinpoint if you're someone that likes more of a matte finish. I personally can't put this all over my face. Like on my forehead, sometimes it looks a little too metallic. So what I like to do is I'll finish off my face with my powders, and then I'll take something like this and kind of dust it on the tops of the cheeks and a little bit like on the forehead, like around my eyebrow. But other than that, like I find that it can be a little pearlescent, and that's the same thing with this. I kind of pinpoint where I like to finish this on the skin. It does give you that pearly finish on the face where it just looks like your skin's kind of glowing almost. I know that's not for everyone, but I do think that if you are a fan of the Hourglass powders, you'll probably like the CoverGirl one. However, there are definitely limits to the shades. And although this is on the sheer side, I do kind of feel like there are some shades missing here. I originally was thinking that this was going to be similar to my Kosas Cloud Set. I actually feel like the Cloud Set does give a lot more coverage, and while it's a finishing powder, I don't think that the finish is the same. And lastly is one that I haven't seen too many people talk about, but I did think while applying these, they were so similar in their textures. This is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Kiss Theory lipstick. It's like this super skinny lipstick, you guys. It looks like you get virtually no product in it, if I'm being honest. And then the Morphe, what is this officially called? Liplock Glossy lipstick, and I have this in Sealed Kiss. And the shades are not the same. So I'm not comparing the shades, I'm comparing the textures and the finishes of these. So they're both going to be very, very glossy lipsticks. And not only that, but they have the same amount of opacity in my opinion. So they kind of come off a little bit sheer with a lot of hydration and a lot of gloss. But when you apply like a full layer of this, it does have that same pigmentation that you would expect from like a regular bullet lipstick, you know? I think overall you're gonna want to like that glossy lip look. It's definitely like, I have it on today. I have actually the Morphe one on and then the Anastasia right in the center of my lips, and that's it. Like I don't have any additional gloss on, and it definitely looks like I do. So if you're someone that likes that 2-in-1 lipstick lip gloss hybrid, this is really nice for that. It's gonna give you a lot of coverage and a lot of sheen, but what I appreciate about these is that they're not overly goopy and glossy. You know, when glossy lips started coming out a couple of years ago, like really, really popular, everyone was coming out with glossy, super glossy lipsticks. Some of them could be a little bit goopy. These don't do that. I think that these are more refined in formula than those are now, which I really appreciate. You get a lot of gloss, you get a lot of pigment, but they don't get goopy and stringy on the lips. So that's really nice. I wish the Anastasia was bigger. It feels like kind of a scam, to be honest with you guys, but I picked it up because I was like, I think this is going to be similar to the Morphe one, and I really wanted to know. They're not like super innovative and different from anything else that's on the market when it comes to lip products right now, but if you had your eye on one or the other, I'm letting you know that they're very similar. So you probably only need one. Okay guys, as promised, here is the side-by-side at the end of the day. On your left side is the drugstore side, and on your right side is the high end. I think everything was wearing exactly the same, except I kind of felt like the blush on the drugstore side, your left side, is looking a little bit more vibrant. Now, it could be because with the Bare Minerals, the high end side, I did kind of mix it to be a bit more bronzy, but I do feel like the vibrancy is definitely there. My oils came through the exact same way on both sides. The eyeshadow looks exactly the same. Even on my lips, the lip stains seem to have faded almost identical to each other. Lots of pigment on the top, a little bit on the bottom. Overall, I think this did so well. I wore this throughout the entire day. I think I went like 10-12 hours wearing this face of makeup and it looked flawless. Okay guys, so those were all of the dupes of the summer that I think are worth talking about. I hope you guys found these helpful. Hopefully you got some inspiration or some recommendations here, whether you're looking at the high end or whether you're looking at the drugstore version. Again, I just want to say a big thank you for all of you guys for sticking around and hanging out with me and going through the last couple of months with me. It has been very rough, and I just really appreciate the kind words. The internet can be a scary place to be vulnerable, and I appreciate you guys for giving me the space to do so. So I just wanted to say thank you again. I have some videos lined up that I'm very excited about. I have some sponsorships too that are lined up that I'm really excited about as well. So again, a huge thank you for all of your support throughout the years or however long you've been here with me. Until our next video, whenever that's gonna be, you guys, I'm gonna leave a video right here that YouTube's actually gonna recommend based on what you've been watching recently. And I hope you guys take care of yourselves. Please take care of yourselves, and I will see you very soon. Bye.